Get an idea about how emerging Asia at the moment is bearing up to the slowdown in US stimulus.
Well, this time we are looking at the development of the bonds market in the region. And so far, up to the first quarter of this year, they are doing much better than summer last year. Because as you recall, summer last year when the discussions about the QE tapering started, some of the market has been badly affected. But as I said, beginning quarter 4 of 2013 and the first 2 months of this year, the market has stabilized.
Do you worry that the path of least resistance for interest rates is up and that we could have a tightening cycle as, well, countries in this part of the world trying to attract funds in, and that in turn could really hit growth?
Yeah, actually, we have to separate the issue about the capital inflows and the cost of borrowing here. The cost of borrowing, definitely there's a risk that it will go up, especially if the yield started to go up. But the recent trend of the capital inflows, or you can call it the return of the capital, because some of the capital moved out from the regions last year, but many of them came back. I think it has less to do with the interest rate. I think it's more because of the situations abroad, especially in the US and Europe and so forth. So the cost of borrowing definitely is likely to go up.
Okay, well, let's talk also about the risks inherent there as well. I mean, how are you looking at growth in East Asia these days, and what is the impact of a slowdown in China, and are you seeing a slowdown that anybody should be concerned about in China?
Well, it's no doubt and it's no secret that the interdependence within the region, especially between China and the rest of Asia, has been increasing, whether you look at it from the backward linkage or forward linkage. So anything happen with the Chinese economy definitely will have impact on the rest of Asia, but mostly in the real sector, especially on the trade sector like export and import, because the region has been quite strong in terms of the production network, but not so much on the financial sector, because the link between the financial sector in China and the rest of the region is not that high.
Yeah, at the moment that's the case anyway, as we have a capital account which is largely closed and, of course, not a free-floating exchange rate as well.
Correct.
Now, but there are other threats, and you're saying in your report that emerging Asia risks are rising and the contagion threat has been heightened. Why so?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we know that the growth in the emerging market in general has been slowing down. And, there is a risk that that will lead to sort of across the board kind of outflow from the bonds market. Because as I said, we are focusing on the bonds market this time. And it may affect the bonds market in emerging market in general. And that means also it may affect the bonds market in Asia. So that is basically the major line of contagions that we are seeing it. On the other hand, however, if this tapering is really going on and continue with likely to continue, that also provides a good news for the region, because despite the fact that the intra-Asian trade has increased, but the two major markets for Asia's export are still the Europe and the US. So if tapering going on, that is the sign of the US recovery, and that's good news for the export sector.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So that's one way that threat of contagion can be mitigated, right?
Correct.
Okay, so where do we go next? Okay, I mentioned China slowing down here. What's the implications, not about the region, but for China itself, and indeed the debt burden of many companies, and indeed the shadow banking side of things there too?
Yeah, the way we see the China slowdowns are both because of the natural trend, because of the demographic changes in China, that affects the number of the labor force, as well as policy driven, because we have to understand that China is now going through a major reform. And, when you are going through a major reform for a big country, or a big economy like China, no doubt it has some implications on the growth. So we are seeing it as a positive trend, because if they are successful in going through this major reform, which, by the way, during the process may slow down the growth, the eventual growth will be more sustainable. So that's the way we see what's going on in China. What we need to really pay attention on is that during this process of transitions, how the economy can maintain the stability, as well as how the impact on the rest of Asia can be also sort of positive or favorable.